next speaker is Kathayoon Khalil. She's the principal evaluator at the Seattle Aquarium. Last year, the world was captivated by the grief of an orca who had just lost her calf. But we didn't necessarily understand what to do with those emotions. Emotions have a difficult sort of presence in conservation. Luckily, Kathayoon is here to give us all of those answers. So please welcome Kathayoon Khalil.
Hello. I'm Dr. Kathayoon Khalil. As Jim said, I'm the principal evaluator here at the aquarium, and I think a lot about empathy, so I'm excited to talk to you about it today. But, like Jim said, something terrible happened in our backyard earlier this year. J35, we'll also call her Tahlequah, is an orca that lives in the southern resident killer whale population. She had a baby, a daughter, who lived about 30 minutes. Long enough, some scientists say, for the orca to bond with her child. So when the child died, she spent the next 17 days carrying that baby's body, at times decomposing, on her forehead through the Sound, through the San Juan Islands, with a little help from her fellow podmates, but at her own risk and at the risk of herself dying. This attracted international attention. After 1 day, after 2 days, after 3, there was a pause we didn't see. 6 days, 9 days, 17 days. People around the world bonded with this animal in a variety of different ways. There was a lot going on here and a lot of anthropomorphism. So we throw that word around a lot, but let me back up. Meanwhile, at the aquarium, we've been studying empathy. So this is our definition of empathy, a stimulated emotional state that relies on the ability to perceive, understand, and care about the experiences or perspectives of another person or animal. In this case, the stimulation was provided by J35, Tahlequah, and her dead baby. It's pretty obvious to see why, but this question came up over and over and over again. What were we projecting onto Tahlequah? How were we putting our own experiences onto that animal, and was that right? Was that the right thing to do? So, in answer of this question, I dove deep into a place that nobody should ever go, the comments section of the Seattle Times, and found so much information. On the one hand, there were a lot of people who were talking like this, who just knew in their heart of hearts that these animals were feeling something, that they were going through an experience, that they were grieving, attaching all these human constructs onto the animal's experience. On the other hand, there are people like this. This is a pretty incendiary comment. This is from a guy who told us, please give me a break. My favorite part is this last one. Science requires a certain level of personal and emotional detachment, which clearly these people do not have. Right? He's reacting to the story that a female scientist was crying because of this loss, because of what she was observing in this animal. And so is this guy right? Should we be detached? Are we projecting ourselves onto these orcas? Well, here's one piece of information. Orcas actually have the same spindle neurons in their brains that process empathy, intuition, communication, and social intelligence that we do. So there's that. Second of all, this is a bit of science for you right here. Science says that emotion happens in 3 parts. There's a physiological response, an outward expression, and analysis. We know that Tahlequah was experiencing a physiological response and an outward expression. She couldn't analyze it for us and tell us what she was feeling, but does that mean she wasn't experiencing an emotion? I leave you to think about that. But in this way, Tahlequah's loss allowed us to empathize with something that was not ourself. It allowed us to be vulnerable and empathize in a safe space, to grieve in a space that was a little bit detached from the one in which we were living. And that was extremely powerful. We saw a lot of stories from people who lost a lot of things. This story is really beautiful, and I've highlighted a couple parts here. I found empathy. I found comfort in empathy for Tahlequah. And again, I didn't know that others shared such emotional reactions. So in sympathy, we can remain a little bit detached, right? And sympathy is a little bit safe. We feel something for somebody, but we don't necessarily feel it with them. In empathy, we are required to stay connected. And that connection has a dark side as well. Because if we are connected, we become more vulnerable. It forces us to look inside of ourselves and really understand the hard times that we've been through and why we might be projecting those hard times onto an animal. And with empathy comes the acute possibility that we will experience losses so much more strongly. We think of empathy as a good thing, right? It's great to be empathic, but empathy will make environmental losses hurt a lot at times, and that is something we are going to have to wrestle with. But what is the alternative to this, right? What is the alternative to feeling for an animal? Are we allowing ourselves to do things that we should not be doing if we believe that animals don't feel sadness, happiness, anger, fear? What can we allow from the world if we say that animals don't feel like we do? And at the risk of being cliche, I'm going to close with someone else's words. We are not alone. We share this world with other beings who love. They, like we, have souls, and they, like we, are gladdened by the sun's kiss on the water, thrilled by the arrival of a child, and broken when the farewell must come. Thank you.